Was Willie Simmons snubbed for the Black College Football Coach of the Year? To me, he was. And I have a factor that likely played into that decision. Psst, play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusions. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and these days every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right candidates for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. I just walked past somebody in the airport today that had a FAMU shirt on, and that was my epiphany that told me segment 3 needed to be Patrick Crarey and how his salary has tripled now that he is the FAMU Rattler men's basketball coach. And I wanted to kick off today's episode with Willie Simmons conversations anyway. So let's just go ahead and have a sandwich of FAMU topics with MLB Combine conversations in the middle of it all. But we kick it off with a question, and it's a series of, I think, maybe 2 or 3 questions that I'll ask in this particular segment. Was Willie Simmons snubbed for Coach of the Year? That's the number one question, right? And I could ask you that, but seeing that you're not in front of me right now, it's on me to answer it, right? And I'm going to try to paint a perfect picture for this one, because to me, Willie Simmons was snubbed for Coach of the Year. And I think I know the reason that they snubbed him, to be honest, if I had to really look into it, because that's how confident that I am with, if I had a vote, I would have picked Willie Simmons. Virginia Union's Alvin Parker ended up winning this award. He was the Black College Football Coach of the Year. And the reason I want to make sure that we know it is Black College Football is because this is not an FCS award. This is not a Division II award. This is not a CIAA award, an SIAC award, and a MEAC or a SWAC award. This is not specific to a conference. This is not specific to a subdivision. This is about all Black college football. And anybody could have won this award. So let's just make it clear. Though one is a D2 program in Virginia Union, one is a D1 program in FAMU, they are still up for this award together. And to me, Alvin Parker was a deserving candidate. I understand why he won the award. I understand why he was a candidate for the award. But to me, Willie Simmons was the most deserving candidate. And I think that he should have won this award. And I want to give that disclaimer because I'm not poo-pooing on whatever that Alvin Parker has done, not only in this year, but in his career. I'm not trying to disparage that. What I'm trying to do is say he's a good candidate, but I think that there was a great candidate on the table, and his name was Willie Simmons. So I started with that initial question. Was he snubbed? To me, I answered that. Now I have another question for you, and this is for those who believe that he was snubbed. Could you have given this award to Willie Simmons? Matter of fact, this could be for anybody, to be honest. Could you have given this award to Willie Simmons? Now, to me, you could. But I think the reason that this is even a question, because if you're basing it off of merit, it's ridiculously easy to answer. Of course you can. You look at what Willie Simmons did this year, of course you can. I don't think you can look at the FAMU Rattlers the 2023 results and outcomes and say that that wasn't a Coach of the Year type resume. But the reason I believe that they didn't give it to him, and the reason that this is even a question, has nothing to do with merit. It has to do with the fact of what colors does he wear now. If FAMU was still led by Willie Simmons, do you think that he gets this Coach of the Year award? Because I do. Let's not tiptoe around it. Let's not dance around it. Let's not talk and put it cutely, right? Let's just be very blunt and straightforward with it. I believe that former FAMU. I believe that former FAMU head coach Willie Simmons did not win the Black College Football Head Coach of the Year because he is no longer the coach of FAMU, and they didn't want to give it to someone who's no longer at an HBCU. There's no need to dance around it. Willie Simmons is not at FAMU anymore. He is now at Duke. And because he is at Duke, I believe that they were like, yeah, we're not going to give him Coach of the Year because of optics. Now, let me bring it down to a smaller scale and relate it back to me. I did this thumbnail prior to recording today's episode, so I already know what the thumbnail is going to look like. And I know that it was a picture of Willie Simmons. Matter of fact, I went to go grab a new picture of Willie Simmons just because I wanted to update the things that I had been using for him. But when I put this on the thumbnail, and I sat there for a second before I downloaded it to my computer and finished it, right? And I said, dang, this just doesn't feel right. And I was speaking more so for you. When it comes to you, I'm thinking you're going to look at this and say, why is Willie Simmons on this thumbnail? That's part of the reason I decided to go with it, because I hope that piqued your curiosity. But I think that the same hesitancy that I had to simply put a man on the thumbnail when I'm talking about the man in the segment, I ain't had no question about whether I was going to put up the segment. I think the idea that some may react, what does he have to do with HBCUs now? That thought process for me was so small on the thumbnail. I can only imagine what it's like for all of the voters up there. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Alvin Parker. I think that he has done really good. But Coach of the Year is a storyline-based award. It really is. You have to do a certain amount to deserve it. But a lot of times, this is a storyline-based award. If you take a team from, garbage to above average, there's a lot of teams that are probably better than you, but you will probably be Coach of the Year because they understand the obstacles and the stigma and like those things all play a part in Coach of the Year. Optics plays such a part in who wins Coach of the Year. When we're talking about professional, collegiate, when we're just talking about what has been done, where you went from to where you are now, the obstacles, the way that your season looks is such a big part of who wins Coach of the Year. Am I to rule out the optics of a coach who is no longer with an HBCU, a coach who is no longer with Black college football winning the Black College Football Coach of the Year may look a little bit odd. So they say, who is the next most deserving person? And can we logically give it to him? I believe that they could give it to Alvin Parker logically. Virginia Union did a lot. But I believe that the best option is Willie Simmons. And the reason that he didn't get it, I'm just saying. The Celebration Bowl puts this over the edge for me. I think that the Celebration Bowl is what FAMU has been looking forward to for 5 years, I believe. It was like 5 years of them being one game away or a sanction away, so they couldn't represent the MEAC that 1 year. There's been so many years. This is deeper than 2023. For you to finally get over that hump, for you to finally climb that obstacle that you've gotten to the top of and just fail. I mean, you were right there and you fell countless times. For you to finally achieve that and for it to be the Black College Football Championship, to me, this was easy. No disrespect. Alvin Parker led Virginia Union to a CIAA championship. He led them to a top 25 ending at the end of the season. He led them to a playoff game. He led them to a very good season. They were 20. FAMU was 10th. Different set of polls, but ran by the same people. AFCA. Is that how you say it? Yeah, AFCA. FAMU went and won the championship. They won a postseason game. Virginia Union didn't. To me, Willie Simmons was the coach who should have been the Coach of the Year, and he wasn't. That's okay, but I believe I know why he was snubbed. The optics of him no longer being an HBCU coach, but still winning the Black College Football Coach of the Year probably would have just looked bad. I'm pretty sure he was still a candidate. I'm pretty sure he was still qualified because it was based off of last season. So I don't think that he was ineligible. Just think they felt like he may be inadequate. Now, as we push forward, 3 players who are not inadequate. We have 3 HBCU players who will be at the MLB Combine in 2024. Matter of fact, it comes up in just a few days. So let's break down those 3 players as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. And now, if you need somebody for your small business, maybe you have a void in the HR department, maybe you have a void in the accounting department, actually know a couple of people who could do something for you, you should go ahead and check out their LinkedIn. But maybe you don't want to hit me up personally for my recommendations. Maybe you don't want to. That's okay. Because when you go to LinkedIn, they have millions and millions and millions of people. The millions and millions of people on LinkedIn are right here for your job. They are the perfect candidates for you. 86% of small businesses who use LinkedIn find the right candidate for their team, not only on LinkedIn, but in the first 24 hours. When we say faster and for free, we mean faster so it's quicker for you, so you can go ahead and get them to work, and it's for free, which means there's really no risk involved. All you have to do is go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen of the day, make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today, the first of its kind, 24/7, all day, every day sports network on YouTube that is live. That means no matter what time that you're watching it, there'll be something new on. Whether it's 11:30 a.m. or 11:30 p.m., you'll find something on Locked On Sports Today, so go ahead and subscribe. Now, there are 3 HBCU players who will be active at the MLB Combine this week. It starts actually tomorrow on the 18th, and it goes all the way until the 23rd, and there'll be 319 prospects at this event. So with 319 prospects, 3 of them will be HBCUs. A very minor number, I understand. It's very, very small. But when you're looking at HBCU representation in these type of events, you will likely never see them be overwhelmingly large numbers. This is just what we are dealing with. When you're looking at professional sports, I think the first thing that you have to know, if you're going to be in the HBCU sphere, talking about the options in professional sports and being realistic, right? I had a conversation with somebody recently. I'm gonna keep the name kind of just whatever, especially since I'm paraphrasing. But it was kind of a what should happen versus what will happen, right? So if you want to sit here and talk about we should have X, Y, and Z, oh, go ahead. But if you want to talk about what will happen, I just want you to know the numbers will never be this high. This is the 3rd ever MLB Combine. So this is a really new event. It's very rare. I can't remember the numbers in the NBA Combine. But this year you have 3 out of 319. Last year you had 2 out of 343. So the mass number of 3 versus 2 has gotten bigger. When you look at the percentage of HBCU players, which I mean, I don't know how much stock you put into that, it's gotten a little bit larger, right? 3 out of 319 is better than 2 out of 343. You have more out of less of a pool, so that's dope. But then you also have the NFL Combine, where last year, or depending on how you look at it, the most recent combine that just passed, it was this year, but the most recent one, 2 HBCU players out of 321 players. So this is about what you see. 2 out of 343, 3 out of 319, 2 out of 321. Like, this is about what you see, and this is what you will continue to see for a while. I think if this is ever going to change, it will not shock you. I know that if we're talking about NFL combines, MLB combines, NBA combines, the HBCU representation in that is very low. And this should not be surprising to you. If it ever does raise, you will know before that happens. You won't just all of a sudden be like, dang, 10 HBCU players in an NFL combine. No, you'll feel it before it happens. There will be a noticeable shift, in my opinion, prior to any of these numbers growing exponentially. But let's look at who's in this, because, also, the timing may seem odd. And because it's a really new event, I do want to explain some of these things. So the MLB draft is around the corner. It's July 14th through the 16th, I believe. It's during the All-Star break. So whenever the All-Star break is, that's in the middle of the season. They got a long time to go before you finally get to the World Series, before you get to the playoffs. You got a while to go before you get there, but the draft is just smack dab in the middle of the season. So it's not a situation where You wait till the season is over. The season is over. A month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, you finally get the draft. It isn't that, right? Like even in the NBA, the NFL is really the one that takes a long time before you get to the draft because you have February where the Super Bowl is, then you have March, April. So you got 2 months. Yeah, so you got about 2 months before the draft in football. Same month in basketball. The WNBA right away. It's a notorious, and the season starts almost immediately. It's a notoriously quick turnaround in the WNBA. In the MLB, it's just right in the smack dab middle of the year, right? So for college, they'll be out about a month. Yeah, because the College World Series won't even be done before this event is done. They'll end on the same day, most likely, right? Maybe the College World Series will end a day earlier, but it's between that Friday to the Sunday. This MLB Combine ends on Sunday. But let's look at the 3 players who are here. So you have Kenyon Brown out of North Carolina Central, or excuse me, North Carolina A&T. Please don't beat me up, y'all. I have Kenyon Brown out of North Carolina A&T. You have Cameron Buford and Kyle Walker out of Grambling. Both of those players, the third baseman and the second baseman, while Kenyon Bryan is the Aggies catcher. And this is the second year in a row that North Carolina A&T has put a player into this event. Last year, it was the pitcher, Xavier Meacham. He ended up getting drafted. But this year, you're looking at a catcher who had played with him. You know, he caught the pitches from him. And you're looking at Kenyon Brown, who he was a first-team All-CAA catcher. And not only that, he had the most, or he threw out the most base runners trying to steal a base in the conference this year at 27. And that number of 27 not only led the CAA, but it also is the most in North Carolina A&T history since 2013 when somebody threw out 29. So you're looking at somebody who had a very successful 2024, and it's likely what played a part into him being able to make it to this event right here. Then for Grambling, you have your second baseman and your third baseman duo. Buford leads, and I'm gonna focus on their offensive stats, but Buford leads Grambling with the most home runs in school history, right? Buford is their third baseman, and he, excuse me, even if you look beyond the home runs and you just look at the runs that he was responsible for, say they be home runs, say they be RBIs, right? Let's just combine those two together. He had the second most in the SWAC this year, right? He was tied for second most. And if you're looking at just RBIs, he had the second most RBIs by just 2 less than first place. He had 58. First place had 60. So you're looking at somebody who is the all-time leader in home runs for Grambling. You're looking at somebody who knocked out 10 home runs in 2024. But that wasn't the only way he did his damage. You also seeing somebody who had many RBIs. So he's very responsible when it comes to being a lion's share of that Grambling offense. Another player who can claim that title is, excuse me, guys, I have something in my throat. But Kyle Walker, the second baseman. And with Kyle Walker, he actually had 1 more home run. The second baseman had 1 more home run than his third base counterpart. But that's cool because they were right there, 11 versus 10. And when you're looking at 6th in the conference in home runs, second most RBI, excuse me, that was Buford I'm referencing. When you're looking at Walker, he was 3rd in the conference in home runs, 3rd in batting average, 2nd in most hits. And I think this is the number for me that really drives home what he was able to do. And that is he is a higher at-bat number. So he had 202 at-bats, but he only had 18 strikeouts, which is one of the lower strikeout numbers in the conference. And I'm not talking about percentages. Yes, that's going to be a very impressive percentage because of everybody else who batted 200 or more, there was nobody under 20 but Walker. When you're looking at those guys who were lower than 18 strikeouts, there was a guy who had 18 strikeouts on 32 at-bats. You compare the efficiency. It's not just about getting on base. It's not like, yes, that's what you would want to do, obviously. But it's about the fact that in this particular conversation, he wasn't getting struck out. He wasn't. So whether it's Buford, whether that's Walker, whether that's Brown, they have very good company. This is the 3rd year of the MLB Combine. Last year was the first time that any HBCU player made it, and there was 2, one from Bethune-Cookman and one from North Carolina A&T. Both of those men ended up getting drafted. So we'll see if we can make it 5 for 5, and I hope that we can. Now, as we push forward, I want to look at FAMU men's basketball coach Patrick Crarey and how he just got the bag because some of his contract details have been revealed. So let's break them down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and I hope that the Celtics are wrapping up the NBA Finals tonight. We have Game 5. Dallas was able to avoid the sweep. I think that Jaylen Brown right now is the favorite for the MVP, but who knows? Maybe Jason Tatum can steal that from him. Y'all think so? We'll see. If you think he can, go ahead and put some money down on FanDuel.com/locked-on. If you think that he can't, go ahead and put some money down on FanDuel.com/locked-on. The Stanley Cup coming to a close very soon. Just put some money down there. It's everything. Whether you want to say individual games for Game 5 in the NBA Finals, if you want to say the Finals MVP, all of those things are available. Do you think that Luka will go for 30 again? Because I do. Hasn't even proven to consistently be a 30-piece on any given night, specifically in these finals. Go ahead and go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to put money on whatever you believe will happen in this year's NBA Finals. That's wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. I'm recording this on Tupac's birthday. You'll be hearing this on Kendrick Lamar's birthday. Very special pairing of days. Next time you hear me, it'll be Juneteenth. Probably shouldn't have mentioned that right next to each other like they're equals, but you know, maybe I did that because Kendrick has a concert on Juneteenth that I'll be watching on Amazon Prime. You can also Amazon Prime. If you're on there, you can go ahead and check out some of the Locked On channels, like Locked On Sports Today. It all comes full circle. It all comes back around full circle. But you know what? Let's look forward and wrap up this episode, and let's get this full circle, because just like we started with FAMU, we're closing with FAMU. It's all connected. FAMU men's basketball head coach Patrick Crarey has tripled his salary by being hired by the Rattlers. Yeah, that's a headline that you don't typically hear when it comes to HBCUs. A coach is earning 3 times as much money as he did at his previous stop now that he is with the FAMU Rattlers and HBCU. I understand that his last stop was an NAIA school, so I'm not going to go too hard on the point. Like, I get it. It's a lower subdivision. It's a difference, right? But it's just not something you typically hear when connecting an HBCU player, or HBCU coach in his university, that he's getting more money. He came here for a significant pay raise. But you know what? I thought something was interesting, because when I saw, or I heard, that he had an incentive-laced contract, or a heavy incentive contract, I thought that the $150,000 that he was going to make at FAMU was connected to his incentives. I initially thought that Patrick Crarey's 150 contract was like, oh, well, you know, if he hits this, and this, he can at most make 150,000. From reading the article, though, it seems like 150 is his base pay, which is significantly more, right? When you look at Patrick Crarey, this is all, first off, shout out to Rattler Nation, because they are the ones that broke this story. When you look at what Patrick Crarey was getting at St. Thomas, he was getting $36,000 to $65,000. That's the range that is believed that he was making. Now he's making $150,000 per year. Like I said, I initially thought this was a lot of incentives, but when you look at the 150 base plus the incentives, there's so much room for growth, and it's a 150 guaranteed. Everything else, 150 is the floor, okay? So that's the best way to put it. He was making Crarey was making $36,000 to $65,000 a year. Whatever that was, that number isn't specific. That's the range that they were able to find. At 150, you're making maybe nearly 5 times that amount if you're on the low side, 3 times if you're somewhere in the middle. But then when you look at these incentives at the end, $2,000 if he has a graduation rate of 85% or more, or a 96 or 960 APR, $1,000 for a regular season title, $2,000 for a tournament championship, right? Like you just looking at these right now. In the NFL, when you have incentives, they have things that are called likely to earn and not likely to earn. I'm going to change the definition of that, but let's look at all of these. 2K, if he has a graduation rate of 85% or more, or a 960 APR. 1,000 for a regular season title, 2,000 for a tournament championship, 2,500 for a coach of the year, 1,000 for an NIT berth, 7,000 if he beats a Power 5 opponent, 2.5K if he makes it to the big dance, 5,000 for the first win in the NCAA tournament, 1,000 for every win after that, 15,000 for a Final Four appearance, and 30,000 if he schedules $600,000 or more in guaranteed games. So that's a lot of incentives. That's a lot. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 incentives that are on his contract. He has a base of 150, but he has 10 incentives that if you're going into the NCAA tournament, and I'm taking out ones that I think are just completely unrealistic, not likely to earn at all, like a Final Four appearance or 1,000 for every subsequent win. There's nothing that's showing me that that's close. You're looking at $47,000 in incentives on his ceiling if he makes it to the NCAA tournament and likely wins a first 4 game. That's what I'm looking at, not a 16 seed or a 15 seed winning in the first round. Then if you're making it to the NIT, you're looking at a ceiling of $43,500 in guaranteed dollars or in bonus money. All of his bonuses have the caveat of subsequent to, or what's it called? Subject to availability of funds. I don't know what kind of funds they're dedicating to the NC or to the FAMU men's basketball team. Will they be able to pay him 190? I don't know. When you look at it, graduation rates, regular season titles, tournament championship, coach of the year, find the money. And the only one that's kind of confusing for me is the Power 5 opponent. I don't know if that's one for every single victory or if that's just, hey, you beat 2, you beat 3, you beat 1. Either way, you're getting $7,000. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, another little bonus he gets is that no matter how much money he makes from his coaching clinics, he's able to keep all of that revenue. So that's an extra bonus that doesn't even really have to come out of the FAMU budget necessarily. So I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back with more contract talk on Wednesday, Juneteenth. We'll be looking at Grambling because Grambling men's basketball head coach got himself an extension. So let's look at that on next episode. In the meantime, between time, until next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. 1838. No, I'm joking. Peace.